Miss Lane, Mr. Harrison said that today you only need to wear the bridesmaid dress. I looked at the pink bridesmaid dress in my hands, then glanced at the white wedding gown lying on the vanity table. That gown belonged to me. Lana, say that again, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Lana smiled like a victor. The bride today is someone else. Just cooperate a little, and it'll be fine. Otherwise, I'll send out the wedding invitations right here and coldly tell Cole Harrison to call off the engagement. In the dressing room, I was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the straps of my wedding dress. Today was supposed to be my wedding day with Cole Harrison. After a whole year of preparation, I was finally about to marry the man I had loved for 3 years. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of someone tapping on the door broke the silence. Cole's secretary, Lena, pushed the door open and walked in, holding a pink bridesmaid dress. "Miss Lane, please change into this," she said. I frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Lana set the dress down in front of me and smiled politely. "Mr. Harrison changed his mind at the last minute. He thinks it's more appropriate for someone else to be the bride today." Someone else? My heart started pounding wildly. That's right, me. Lana didn't even bother to hide her smugness. After all, Mr. Harrison and I are the ones who truly love each other. You were just a stand-in. The air in the dressing room instantly froze. I stared at her. Are you kidding me? Of course not. Lana calmly adjusted her hair as she continued. Look, I even had bridal makeup done today. The wedding gown is right outside the door. Mr. Harrison asked you to cooperate a little, put on the bridesmaid dress and be our bridesmaid. My hands clenched tightly into fists. Lana, do you even know what you're saying? I do, she said, her eyes gleaming with pride. He's loved me since 3 years ago. Did you really think being the heiress of the Lane family made you special? Status means nothing in the face of love. I took a deep breath, trying my best to stay calm. Where is Cole Harrison? He's in the prep room, probably getting into his tuxedo. Lana glanced at her watch. There isn't much time left. Most of the guests are already here. You'd better change quickly. I looked into the mirror at the woman in the white wedding dress. She had once been full of hope, ready to step into a new chapter of her life. 3 years of love, 1 year of careful preparation, yet in this moment, everything had turned into a cruel joke. Slowly, I took the tiara off my head and placed it on the vanity. Lana, are you sure this is really what Cole Harrison wants? Of course. If you don't believe me, go ask him yourself. I nodded. Good. Then I'll go ask him. A flicker of panic crossed Lana's face. Change first. If the guests see you like this, it won't look good. No need. I lifted the hem of my wedding dress and strode straight toward the door. I'll ask him in this dress and see if Cole Harrison dares to say those words to my face. Lana tried to block my way, but I shoved her aside. As soon as I pushed open the dressing room door, a staff member rushed over. Miss Lane, the ceremony is about to begin. Where's Cole Harrison? I asked. He's in the prep room, but according to tradition, the groom and bride shouldn't meet before the ceremony. I ignored her and walked straight toward the prep room. Behind me, I could hear Lana's hurried footsteps. Vivian, don't get worked up. Please don't get worked up. I let out a cold laugh. If this doesn't count as getting worked up, then what does? I kicked the prep room door open. Cole Harrison was adjusting his tie. The moment he saw me, his face instantly turned pale. Vivian, why are you? Cole Harrison, I cut him off sharply. You told me to wear a bridesmaid dress and be the bridesmaid for you and Lana. I stared straight into his eyes, forcing out every word. Cole froze, his hand stopping mid-air, sweat forming on his forehead. Vivian, listen to me. I can explain. Explain what? Explain. Are you going to explain that you've been sneaking around with your secretary? I shouted, my voice rising. Or explain why you think I'm some kind of fool. My tone grew louder and louder until people outside began to peek in through the doorway. Cole Harrison glanced toward the door in panic, then hurried over, trying to close it. I grabbed his wrist tightly. Don't close it. Let everyone hear and see what kind of man the great Mr. Harrison really is. Vivian Lane? Cole hissed under his breath. Are you out of your mind? There are guests out there. You've lost it. I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter, as if I had just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. You're right. I have gone crazy, driven mad by you two. Right at that moment, Lana rushed in. Seeing the scene, her face immediately changed. She quickly put on a pitiful expression. Cole, she whimpered, I was only doing what you told me to. Shut up, Cole barked, glaring at her with fury before turning back to me, his tone softening. Vivian, she's talking nonsense. Don't believe her. I looked at the two of them and suddenly felt a wave of disgust mixed with dark amusement. Even now, they were still pretending? Did they really think I was that stupid? Cole Harrison, if you're saying Lana's lying, then let me ask you this. Who is it that you love? Of course it's you, he answered without hesitation. Then why did Lana just say you two are the real ones in love? She's jealous of you, he said quickly. That's why she said something so stupid. I nodded slowly. I see. Then I walked straight up to Lana and, without warning, slapped her hard across the face. The sound of that slap echoed clearly through the prep room. Lana clutched her cheek, staring at me in shock. You actually hit me? I didn't just hit you, I sneered. I could tear that lying mouth of yours apart too. I grabbed her by the collar. For the past 3 years that you've been working with Cole, what exactly have you been doing? Did you think I didn't know? Late night overtime, business trips together, even when I was out on dates with him, you always somehow showed up. And now you have the nerve to stand here and say those things to my face? Did you think I was dead? Vivian, let go of me, she screamed, struggling in my grip. Let you go? I gave a cold laugh. Not today. Today, I'll show you what it really means to be the daughter of the Lane family. I shoved her back, then pulled out my phone. Hello, Dad? It's me. Vivian? My father's deep voice came from the other end. What's going on? Isn't the wedding about to start? Cancel it. I want to call off the engagement. There was silence for a few seconds, then his voice dropped low. What happened? Cole Harrison cheated on me. The other woman is his secretary, Lana. I'll be right there. I hung up and looked over at Cole. His face had gone completely white. He knew better than anyone what the Lane family's status meant in this city, and that my father, Richard Lane, was not a man to be trifled with. Vivian, don't be impulsive, Cole pleaded. Let's sit down and talk about this. Talk about what? I snapped. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger and threw it straight at his face. What else is there to talk about? The diamond ring cut across his cheek, leaving a thin line of blood. Cole winced and clutched his face. Vivian, you've gone too far. Too far? I let out a bitter laugh. Tell me, how exactly have I gone too far? For finding out that you two have been sneaking around behind my back, or for refusing to be the bridesmaid at your wedding? By now, Lana was completely panicked. She realized things had spiraled far beyond her control. Miss Lane, please, it was just a misunderstanding. I was joking. Joking? I looked at her coldly. Do I look like I'm joking with you? Just then, hurried footsteps came from outside the prep room. My father entered, flanked by several bodyguards. He wore a black suit, his expression dark and icy. His gaze swept across the room before finally landing on Cole. Cole Harrison, he said in a voice that made the air heavy. My daughter tells me you cheated on her. Is that true? Cole swallowed hard. Mr. Lane, it's a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. My father let out a cold, humorless laugh. A misunderstanding? On my daughter's wedding day, you tell her to be the bridesmaid for your mistress, and that's what you call a misunderstanding? Cole opened his mouth, trying to explain, but my father had already lost patience. With a wave of his hand, the bodyguards stepped forward immediately. Get everyone from the Harrison family out of here. The engagement is off. Dad, wait, I said quickly, grabbing his sleeve. Let me handle this myself. He turned his gaze toward me, his eyes filled with both pain and anger. Vivian, are you sure about this? My father asked. I'm sure, I said, nodding firmly. I want them to understand what it means to cross the Lane family and what it costs. Half an hour later, chaos filled the grand ballroom of the hotel. The stage that was supposed to be the place for my wedding ceremony had turned into a spectacle for everyone to watch. I stood on the platform, holding the microphone in my hand. Below the stage sat both families, relatives, and friends, all looking bewildered. They had come to witness the wedding of Vivian Lane and Cole Harrison, but instead, they were about to hear news of its cancellation. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice echoing through the speakers, clear and steady. I'm truly sorry, but the wedding today has been cancelled. Instantly, the room erupted into noise. Cancelled? Why? What happened? Where are the bride and groom? I waited until the murmurs quieted before continuing. The reason is simple. The groom cheated. The words hit the room like a bomb. The hall fell into stunned silence. Then Cole's mother, Mrs. Harrison, shot up from her seat. Vivian, what did you just say? Cole would never cheat. I looked at her and gave a cold smile. Mrs. Harrison, your son not only cheated but also wanted me to be the bridesmaid at his mistress's wedding. Tell me, should I have agreed to that? Mrs. Harrison's face turned ashen. Who's the other woman? Lana, I said, my voice sharp, his secretary. The moment I finished speaking, the entire hall erupted again. Guests began turning to look around, trying to find who Lana was. She sat hidden in a corner of the room, wishing she could sink into the floor. I raised my hand and pointed straight at her. It's her. The one in the pink evening gown. Every eye in the room turned toward her. Lana sat frozen, her face pale as paper. Perhaps some of you don't know, I continued evenly, but today, Ms. Lana was supposed to wear a wedding dress and marry Cole Harrison. And me? I was supposed to wear a bridesmaid dress and stand beside them, smiling and clapping for their happiness. The murmurs grew louder and angrier. My God, that's outrageous, someone whispered. She tried to steal the groom on the wedding day? Who is this Lana woman? How shameless can she be? Mrs. Harrison was trembling with rage. Where's Cole? Call him here to explain himself. I looked down toward the audience. Cole Harrison is still in the prep room, probably trying to figure out how to explain all this. At that moment, the ballroom doors burst open. Cole walked in, his face covered in scratches and blood that hadn't even been cleaned. He looked miserable. All eyes turned to him. Mrs. Harrison rushed forward. Cole, what's going on? Is what Vivian said true? Cole looked at me, standing on the stage, then down at Lana, who sat with her head lowered. His Adam's apple bobbed as he struggled for words. Cole, his mother snapped. Say something. He stayed silent for a long moment before finally forcing out 2 words. I'm sorry. The room went completely silent. No one spoke. Everyone understood then that I had told the truth. Cole Harrison had indeed cheated. Mrs. Harrison swayed, nearly fainting, and someone had to rush forward to catch her. You disgrace, she shouted, pointing a trembling finger at her son. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Lane family could no longer stay seated. My second uncle, Samuel Lane, stood up, his face dark with fury. Cole Harrison, are you playing games with our family? That's right, another relative said angrily. This is nothing short of an insult to the Lane family. We entrusted our daughter's happiness to you. One by one, members of the Lane family rose, their voices joining together to condemn Cole. The Harrisons, on the other hand, sat frozen, humiliated, unable to utter a single word. This scandal had completely destroyed their reputation. I looked at the chaos unfolding below and felt an odd, quiet calm wash over me. This was exactly the outcome I wanted. So that everyone will know exactly what kind of man Cole Harrison truly is, I said to myself. So that his reputation and everything he's built will crumble to dust. Please everyone, settle down, I spoke again into the microphone once the noise began to die down. I still have a few words to say. The ballroom slowly quieted. First of all, I said calmly, I want to thank every one of you for coming today. Although the wedding has been canceled, I deeply appreciate your kindness and presence. I paused for a moment, letting the murmurs fade before continuing. Second, I want to share some good news. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Good news? I smiled. Starting today, I, Vivian Lane, will officially take over the management and operations of Lane Corporation. My father has decided to appoint me as the successor of the Lane family business. The crowd buzzed in shock. The Lane Corporation was one of the most powerful enterprises in the city. The announcement caused an even greater stir than the cheating scandal itself. Vivian Lane, the once heartbroken bride, was now about to become one of the most influential women in town. Cole's face instantly darkened. He knew better than anyone what this meant. If I truly took control of Lane Corporation, the Harrison family would be finished. Lane Corporation had the financial power to crush the Harrisons completely, leaving them unable to rise again in this city. Finally, I turned my gaze directly toward Cole. Mr. Harrison, from this moment forward, all business collaborations between us are terminated. Every project between Lane Corporation and Harrison Group ends today. Cole's face went pale in an instant. He knew the truth. Most of Harrison Group's current success relied on Lane Corporation's support. Without it, his company would collapse overnight. "Vivian, you can't do this," he shouted, stumbling onto the stage. "We can start over. I'll end things with Lana, I swear." I stared at him coldly. "Start over? Cole Harrison, do you really think that's possible?" I know I was wrong," he stammered. "You know you were wrong?" I cut him off sharply. "Tell me, what exactly are you sorry for? Sorry because I found out? Or sorry because you didn't manage to fool me until the end?" Cole opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out, because deep down he knew I was right. He didn't feel guilty, he only regretted being caught. "Vivian, we've been together for 3 years, he said weakly. "Doesn't that mean anything to you? Don't you feel anything at all?" "Feelings?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Yes, I did have feelings for you once. That's why I was so furious. But now, every bit of that love has turned into hatred." I stepped closer to him, my voice steady and sharp. "Cole Harrison, I hate you. I hate your betrayal. I hate your lies. I hate that you treated me like a fool, and I will make sure you pay for it." "Pay how?" he muttered, his voice trembling. I leaned in close to his ear and whispered, "By losing everything, everything you have, and everyone you have." Cole's whole body trembled. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The Lane family had the power to destroy the Harrisons, and I, Vivian Lane, had more than enough determination to do it. "Vivian, please, don't call my name," I said, stepping back. "From this moment on, we're strangers." Without another word, I turned and walked down from the stage. The crowd instinctively parted, creating a clear path for me. I walked straight toward Lana. The moment she saw me coming, she tried to slip away, but my father's bodyguards blocked her escape. "Miss Lana," I said, my voice calm but firm, "let's have a little chat." Lana swallowed hard, stammering, "Miss Lane, I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about." "Oh, I think there is," I said with a faint smile. "For instance, you could tell me exactly how you managed to seduce Cole Harrison." Inside one of the hotel's private rooms, only Lana and I remained. The bodyguards stood outside the door, ensuring no one could interrupt. Lana sat stiffly on a chair, her fingers tightly interlocked. She had already changed out of her pink evening gown into a black business suit, looking as if she were about to attend a funeral. And perhaps, in a way, she was her own. "Lana," I began, sitting across from her, my voice steady and composed, "we've known each other for 3 years now. You've always been Cole Harrison's secretary." I began calmly, my tone even but cold. "You've worked hard, never complained, and always acted so professional." Lana kept her head down, not daring to meet my eyes. "I trusted you," I continued, my voice steady. "I even considered you a friend. Every time I came to the company to see Cole, you were always so warm and polite." She said nothing. "Do you remember my birthday last year?" I asked quietly. "You helped him prepare a surprise for me. You stayed up all night decorating his office by hand." Lana's shoulders began to tremble. "That night, I even praised you," I said bitterly. "I told you Cole was lucky to have such a thoughtful secretary." I paused for a moment, then looked straight at her. "Tell me, when did you start having feelings for him?" Finally, Lana lifted her head. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Miss Lane, Don't call me Miss Lane," I interrupted. "We're enemies now. Just call me Vivian." Lana bit her lip. "Vivian, I know you're angry, but I truly love him." "Love?" I gave a cold, mocking laugh. "Do you love him, or do you love the status and power that come with him?" "I love him." Lana suddenly cried out, her voice trembling. "From the very first day I joined the company, I already loved him." "Then why didn't you confess earlier?" I asked sharply. "Why wait until he was with me to start seducing him?" Lana fell silent. "Because she knew the truth. Without my position as the heiress of the Lane family, without the title of being my boyfriend, someone like her would never have even caught Cole Harrison's attention. She had only gotten close to him because of me, because she was my friend, because she was his secretary, and she had used every small advantage to worm her way into his life bit by bit." "You don't answer?" I said quietly. "Then I'll take that as your confession." I stood up and walked toward the window. "Lana, do you know what your biggest mistake was?" She hesitated. "What?" "Greed." I turned back to face her. "If you had just wanted to be the woman hidden in the shadows, maybe I would have turned a blind eye. But you weren't satisfied with that. You wanted to take my place as the bride. You wanted to slap me in the face in front of everyone. Lana's face grew paler by the second. Vivian, just what? I cut her off. Just wanted a title? Just wanted to humiliate me? I stepped closer, standing over her, looking down. Do you really think you're worthy of Cole Harrison? The question hit her like a dagger. She knew better than anyone that in background, education, appearance, she couldn't compare to me. The only thing that had ever drawn Cole to her wasn't her excellence. It was her obedience, her willingness to flatter, and her manipulative charm. I know I'm not good enough for him, she said in a voice barely above a whisper. But I truly love him. Love? I sneered. You don't even know how to love yourself. How could you possibly love someone else? Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean, I said coldly, that anyone willing to throw away her self-respect for a man, her so-called love, isn't worth a dime. I sat back down across from her. Tell me, Lana, did Cole Harrison ever promise to marry you? She was silent. Did he ever promise to give you a title, to make you his wife? Still silence. Did he even promise to leave me for you? At last, Lana shook her head. Then what were you expecting? I asked, my voice like ice. That one day his conscience would suddenly wake up, and he'd dump the Lane family's heiress, just to be with you? My words cut through the air like a knife. Lana, I said quietly, you're far too naive. If I hadn't discovered your affair today, if the wedding had gone on as planned, what do you think Cole Harrison would have done with you? Tears streamed down her face. He would have continued living with you as husband and wife. I told you already, he would have kept you as his secret mistress, I said coldly. For the rest of your life, you'd never be able to lift your head. You'd live in the shadows, hiding, sneaking around, and you'd still be willing to accept that, wouldn't you? Lana broke down completely, crying harder now because she knew every word I said was true. If it weren't for what happened today, she really would have spent her life in the dark, and she would have accepted it without hesitation. Vivian, I know I was wrong, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I shook my head. If saying sorry could fix everything, then what do we need the police for? I pulled out my phone and switched on the voice recorder. Lana, I said evenly, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Answer them honestly. The moment she saw the recorder, she tensed up. What? What are you doing? Collecting evidence, I replied, my voice calm and controlled. First question, when did your affair with Cole Harrison begin? Lana hesitated, her lips trembling. Last year, in March. What day exactly? March 15th. I nodded slowly. That was Cole's birthday. That year I couldn't be with him because of work. You stayed behind at the office with him that night, didn't you? She didn't answer, but the silence told me everything. That was the night it all started. Second question, I continued. For the past year, how often have you two met? About 2 or 3 times a week, she whispered. Where? At the office, at hotels, and at your house. My fingers curled into a tight fist. My house. They dared to do it in my own home. That was the ultimate humiliation. Third question, whose idea was it today to make me wear the bridesmaid dress? Lana bit her lip. It was mine, but Cole agreed. At first he didn't, right? She nodded weakly. No, he didn't, but I convinced him. Convinced him how? I told him it would embarrass you, she said in a whisper, that it would make you understand your place. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm as the rage burned in my chest. Fourth question, besides Cole Harrison, are you working with anyone else? Lana blinked in confusion. What do you mean? I mean, do you have someone backing you up? Anyone else behind this? No, she said quickly. I'm just a regular secretary. I turned off the recorder and slipped the phone back into my bag. Thank you for your cooperation, Lana. Her face twisted in fear. Vivian, what are you going to do with that recording? Use it to destroy you completely, I said flatly, no longer hiding my intentions. Starting today, you'll become the most infamous mistress in this city. Her eyes widened. You're going to make the recording public? Not just the recording, I said with an icy smile. I'll release your messages, your photos, your videos, everything. All the color drained from her face. You're insane. Doing that won't benefit you at all. No benefit to me? I tilted my head, smiling faintly. Lana, you still don't get it, do you? I'm the victim. You're the homewrecker. If I expose everything, the public will sympathize with me and condemn you. Cole Harrison will be called a scumbag, sure, but men who cheat are nothing new. People will forget about him soon enough. But you're different. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm and cruel. You're the mistress, the shameless, scheming kind. People will remember you for a very, very long time. Lana sank back into her chair, her face drained of all life. She knew I was right. In this society, a cheating man might still find a way to redeem himself. But a mistress, especially one exposed as manipulative and cruel, would be branded for life, nailed to a pillar of shame for everyone to see. Vivian, please, she begged, falling to her knees. Please, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I'll leave this city and never show my face again. Too late, I said, my tone like ice. If you two had kept your affair quiet, maybe I would have let you both live your little lie. But you chose to humiliate me in public. I know I was wrong, she wept. Please, I'll accept whatever punishment, just don't. Knowing you're wrong means facing the consequences, I said firmly. I turned toward the door. Enjoy the next few days, Lana. When I opened the door, 2 of my father's bodyguards immediately stepped inside. Take her home, I ordered coldly. Keep an eye on her. Don't let her try to run. Yes, Miss Lane. Without looking back, I turned on my heel and walked out of the room. I glanced back briefly. Lana was still sitting there, head buried in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. But this was only the beginning. Next, it would be Cole Harrison's turn to pay. The next morning, the entire city seemed to explode. Every major news outlet, every social media platform, was flooded with headlines about the heiress forced to be a bridesmaid at her own wedding. In just one night, I had become the center of attention across the city. Fortunately, almost everyone was on my side. Unbelievable. Making the bride wear a bridesmaid dress? That's pure humiliation. Cole Harrison and Lana are absolute trash. Vivian did the right thing. A man like that deserves to be thrown away. Sitting in my office at Lane Corporation, I scrolled through the flood of comments online, my mood surprisingly calm, and even a little pleased. My secretary knocked and entered. Miss Lane, the Harrison Group's stock price has dropped 15% and is still falling. And Cole? I asked without looking up. He called you 37 times and sent over 80 messages last night, but you didn't respond to any of them. This morning, he even showed up at the building and waited outside for 2 hours before security removed him. I nodded. Let him wait. There's more, the secretary continued. Last night, Lana tried to leave the city, but our people stopped her. She's currently under house supervision. Good, I said, setting my phone down. Tell the finance department to prepare to acquire Harrison Group's shares. While their stock price is plummeting, buy as much as possible. The secretary blinked. You're planning to take over Harrison Group? Yes. My voice was calm, almost casual. I want Cole Harrison to watch with his own eyes as I swallow his company whole. She nodded and quietly left the room. I turned back to my computer and resumed work. In truth, taking over Lane Corporation had been easier than I expected. I had grown up observing my father manage the business, and the corporate environment was already familiar to me. Besides, after what happened yesterday, no one in the company dared to question my abilities anymore. Around noon, my father came to the office. Vivian, he said, sitting down across from me, you handled things very well yesterday. I looked up from my desk. Thank you, Dad. But, he continued, his voice steady, do you really plan to push them to the edge? Do you think I should spare them? I'm not saying you should forgive them, he replied slowly. I'm saying you should leave them a way out. The Harrison family still has roots in this city. If you push too hard, they might act recklessly. I thought for a moment. You're afraid of cornered dogs biting back. Something like that. Then let them try, I said coldly, a faint smile tugging at my lips. I'd actually like to see what else Cole Harrison can pull. My father looked at me, worry clouding his eyes. Vivian, revenge may make you feel better, but don't let hatred cloud your judgment. I know where the line is, Dad, I replied firmly. Good. He stood up. I'll go speak with a few old friends. I'll ask them to suspend cooperation with Harrison Group. Thank you, Dad. After he left, I went back to my work. By 3 p.m, my secretary returned and knocked again. Miss Lane, there's a lady here asking to see you. She says she's Mrs. Harrison. Mrs. Harrison? I leaned back slightly. Cole's mother? Let her in, A few minutes later, Mrs. Harrison was escorted into the office. She looked utterly exhausted, her eyes swollen and red, clearly from crying too much. "Vivian," she began the moment she entered, bowing her head, "I came to apologize. This is all my son's fault. On his behalf, I'm begging your forgiveness." I didn't stand up. I remained seated and said evenly, "Mrs. Harrison, there's no need to be so formal. Please, sit." Once she sat down, tears streamed down her face again. "Vivian, I know Cole hurt you deeply, but please, I'm asking you to give him a chance to make things right, to start over." "A chance?" I asked quietly. "A chance to do what, exactly?" "To change, to correct his mistakes," she pleaded between sobs. "He truly regrets what he's done. He couldn't sleep last night. He's been torturing himself with guilt." I looked at her, expressionless. "Mrs. Harrison, if regret were enough, there wouldn't be any bad people left in this world." "Vivian, and another thing," I interrupted her. "You're mistaken about one thing. Cole Harrison didn't make a mistake. He betrayed me. There's a difference." Mrs. Harrison froze, staring at me, unsure what to say. "A mistake," I said slowly, "is something accidental. Betrayal is deliberate. His affair with Lana had lasted an entire year. That wasn't a moment of weakness, it was something planned. But he really regrets it." Mrs. Harrison stammered. "Regrets being caught?" I asked coldly. "Or regrets doing it?" She froze, unable to answer because deep down she knew the truth. If Cole hadn't been exposed, he would never have felt a shred of remorse. He would have continued enjoying the comfort of having both a wife and a mistress. "Mrs. Harrison," I said, my tone softening slightly, "I understand what it's like for a mother to want to protect her son. But some things once done can never be undone." "Vivian, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Think about the relationship between our two families. For so many years, I let out a bitter laugh. "Mrs. Harrison, do you really think there's still any relationship left between us? Your son asked me to be the bridesmaid for his mistress on our wedding day. Was that your idea of family ties? He brought his lover into my home to sleep with her. Do you call that affection? He lied to me for an entire year, and you still dare to speak of loyalty between families?" My voice grew sharper with every word until, by the end, I was nearly shouting. Mrs. Harrison shrank back, unable to say another word. "Mrs. Harrison," I said finally, standing up and meeting her eyes directly, "this will be the last time I say this. As of yesterday, there are no longer any ties between me and the Harrison family. The Lanes will never help the Harrisons again. This path was chosen by Cole Harrison himself, and he alone will bear the consequences." "Vivian," she began, her voice cracking. "Please leave," I cut her off coldly. "If you still have any shred of dignity as a mother, don't ever come here to beg me again." My words cut into her like a blade. Mrs. Harrison stood slowly, staring at me for a long moment. "Vivian, you've changed." I gave a faint, bitter smile. "You're right, I have. Anyone who's been lied to and betrayed would change. I gestured vaguely. "This is the gift your family gave me." She didn't say another word. She simply turned and left. After she was gone, I sat back down. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, but my heart was a tangled mess. It would be a lie to say I wasn't hurt. After all, I had been with Cole for 3 years, and I had even felt some affection for his mother. But some things, once broken, can never be mended. Not every apology deserves forgiveness, and not every regret deserves sympathy. That evening, as I was about to leave work, my secretary came in with a report. "Miss Lane, Harrison Group's stock closed down 28% today, nearly hitting the limit. How many shares have we bought? 15% so far. We're now the second largest shareholder." "Keep buying," I said calmly. "I want controlling interest." "And Cole Harrison?" "This morning, he went to several banks to request emergency loans, but all were denied. This afternoon, he tried to contact a few old business partners, but none of them would meet with him." I nodded slowly. Seems my father's old friends still respect him. As I stepped out of the building's main entrance, a familiar voice called my name. "Vivian." Across the busy street, Cole Harrison stood watching me. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes red from exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. I ignored him and continued toward the parking lot. "Vivian, please," he shouted, hurrying across the street. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing left to talk about," I said without turning back, my tone cold and flat. There is, he insisted, stepping in front of me to block my path. There's a lot we need to talk about. I know you're furious, but we can't end things like this. Why not? I asked, stopping and looking straight into his eyes. Give me one good reason. Because I love you, he said desperately. Love me? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Cole Harrison, do you even hear yourself? Doesn't saying that make you sick? I really do love you, he said, voice trembling. What happened with Lana was just a moment of weakness, Cole said desperately. A moment of weakness that lasted an entire year? I scoffed. I was just confused. She tempted me, but I've come to my senses now. I looked at his face, that feigned sincerity he wore so well, and I almost laughed. Even now, after everything, he was still acting. Still trying to play the role of the remorseful man who thought a few emotional words could move me. Cole Harrison, I said quietly, do you know what your biggest problem is? He looked at me, hesitant. What? You've never actually believed you did anything wrong. I enunciated each word clearly. You're not sorry for betraying me. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you lost the Lane family's support. You're sorry your plan fell apart. But as for betraying me, you never felt guilty about that. Cole opened his mouth as if to argue, but no sound came out. Because he knew every word I said was true. Vivian, I really do know I was wrong, he said weakly. I swear I do. Then tell me, I said, my voice cutting through his excuses. What exactly are you sorry for? He hesitated, then murmured, I'm sorry for cheating. That's it? I'm sorry for lying to you, he added quickly. I waited, but he said nothing more. After a long silence, I shook my head. See, even now you still don't understand what you did wrong. You don't understand how humiliating it was to make me wear a bridesmaid dress at my own wedding. You don't understand how disgusting it felt to know you brought another woman into our home. You don't understand how painful it was to be lied to for an entire year. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling slightly, not from weakness but from sheer restraint. You only regret being caught. You think saying sorry is enough to erase everything. I turned away and continued walking toward the parking lot. You're so naive, Cole Harrison. By the third day, everything was unfolding exactly as I had planned. Harrison Group's stock kept plummeting, even dropping below its initial offering price. One by one, their major clients began canceling contracts, all giving the same vague excuse, reassessing strategic partnerships. The banks began recalling loans early, demanding immediate repayment. Cole was running everywhere, begging for help, but no one would lend him a hand. Meanwhile, I remained calm, steadily acquiring more of the company's shares. By late afternoon, I held 32%, surpassing Cole's 30%, and officially becoming the majority shareholder. That meant I now had the power to influence all major company decisions. Miss Lane, my secretary said, knocking on the door, Cole Harrison wants to see you. He said it's urgent. Let him in, I replied coolly. A few minutes later, Cole was escorted into my office. Compared to 2 days ago, he looked even worse. His once tailored suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, stubble shadowing his jaw. There was no trace left of the polished, confident CEO he used to be. Vivian, he croaked, sitting across from me, his voice hoarse. We need to talk. Yes, I said calmly, placing the file I'd been reviewing onto the desk. We do need to talk about the future of Harrison Group. He blinked, confused. What do you mean by that? I'm currently the largest shareholder of your company, I said, meeting his eyes steadily, which gives me the authority to decide its direction. So tell me, Cole, what do you think I plan to do next? The color drained from his face. He clearly hadn't expected me to be quietly buying up shares. The realization hit him like a brick. Vivian Lane now held more power in Harrison Group than he did. Vivian, when did you start? He stammered. Yesterday, I said bluntly. While your stock was crashing, I bought heavily. You're doing this for revenge, he said, his voice trembling. I laughed softly. Cole Harrison, do you really think you're that important? This is just business. Harrison Group's stock was falling. It was the perfect investment opportunity. Don't lie to me, he said bitterly. You're buying it just to destroy you? I interrupted. Yes, partially. But Harrison Group isn't yours alone. It has other shareholders, thousands of employees who've done nothing wrong. I'm buying it to protect them. Cole's mouth opened, but no words came out. For once, he had nothing to say. Legally speaking, I said evenly, I haven't done anything wrong. Acquiring shares is a perfectly legitimate business practice, and with Lane Corporation's resources, I can actually revive Harrison Group. Vivian, please, Cole's voice softened. Sell the shares back to me. Name your price. Whatever you ask, I'll pay it. I tilted my head slightly. Whatever I ask? Do you even have money left, Cole? He fell silent. Of course he didn't. To keep his company afloat, he had already mortgaged and liquidated everything he owned. At this point, aside from the 30% of company shares still under his name, he was practically broke. If you don't have money, I said coldly, picking up the file on my desk, then stop wasting my time. Let's talk about something realistic. About what? He asked cautiously. About restructuring Harrison Group. I looked at him directly. I plan to implement a complete reorganization, starting with the management team. Cole's heartbeat quickened visibly. You're planning to push me out, aren't you? What do you think? I asked calmly. A CEO with a public scandal, a ruined reputation, do you really think you're still fit to lead the company? I'm the founder, he said, his voice rising. My father handed this company to me. Wasn't your father the actual founder? I interrupted. And now that I'm the majority shareholder, I have the right to decide who serves as CEO. Cole's entire body trembled. Vivian, you can't do this to me. Why not? I walked over to the window, my voice calm but sharp. Cole Harrison, do you really believe you're irreplaceable? Harrison Group will function just fine without you. In fact, it'll probably do even better. I've already been in contact with several professional CEOs, I continued, turning to face him. They're all interested in taking over. One of them just returned from overseas. He used to run a corporation 10 times the size of Harrison Group. Cole slumped back into the chair, completely drained. He knew that without Harrison Group, he would have nothing left. Vivian, he said weakly, we used to love each other. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Can't you show me some mercy? Love? I let out a cold laugh. Cole Harrison, are you even sure what we had was love? Of course, he said quickly. We were together for 3 years. I always loved you. Then what about Lana? I asked sharply. Did you think of me when you were with her? When you were sleeping with her in our house? When you plotted to humiliate me by making me wear a bridesmaid dress at my own wedding? Did you think of me then? My voice grew louder with every word until it echoed through the room. Cole Harrison, is that what you call love? I was just confused, he stammered. It was a mistake. A mistake. I stepped closer to him, my eyes cold. Do you know what a moment of confusion actually means? It means doing something impulsive, realizing immediately that it's wrong, and regretting it at once. But you? I paused, my voice sharp as a blade. You planned your lies for an entire year. That's not confusion, that's disgusting. My words cut deep, his face twisted, the color draining from it. Vivian, you're being cruel, he muttered. Cruel? I laughed, the sound low and bitter. Am I cruel for telling the truth? You claim you love me, but every single thing you've done proves otherwise. A man who truly loves me wouldn't sleep with another woman behind my back. A man who truly loves me wouldn't bring his mistress into our home. And a man who truly loves me would never force me to wear a bridesmaid dress at my own wedding. I spoke each word clearly, my tone cutting and final. Cole Harrison, you never loved me. The only thing you ever loved was my name, the Lane family name, and the power and wealth that came with it. That's not true. He protested desperately. I really do love you. Then why did you cheat? I asked coldly. He faltered, unable to say another word, because he knew, no matter what excuse he came up with, nothing could justify what he'd done. Cole Harrison, I said, sitting back down, my voice calm but final, we're done. In love, in business, in everything. It's over. He swallowed hard. What about Harrison Group? Harrison Group will continue to exist, I said evenly. Just without you. But it won't be yours anymore, I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. You can choose to sell all your shares and walk away, or you can stay, but only as a regular employee. Cole's jaw tightened. Then I'll choose a third option. I raised an eyebrow. And what's the third option? He suddenly stood up, eyes flashing with hostility like a cornered animal ready to bite. I frowned slightly. What are you planning to do? I'll call a shareholders' meeting, he said, his voice rising. I'll expose your true intentions behind acquiring Harrison Group. Then he gave a cold, bitter laugh. I'll make them see you're only doing this to get revenge on me out of spite." "And then what?" I asked calmly. "Then I'll unite the other shareholders," he declared. "Together, we'll fight you." I stared at him for a moment before letting out a quiet laugh. "Cole Harrison, you really are naive." He narrowed his eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Do you honestly think the shareholders will side with you?" I asked, shaking my head. "All they care about is profit. Right now, Harrison Group is collapsing, its stock is in freefall. They're desperate for someone to save the company, and both Lane Corporation and I have the power to do that. What do you have to offer them, besides chaos?" His face darkened. I could see in his eyes that he knew I was right. In business, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. No investor would sacrifice their own fortune just to protect someone out of sympathy. "Vivian," he said through clenched teeth, "must you really corner me like this?" "I've already given you choices," I said evenly, rising from my chair. "Option 1, sell your shares and leave. Option 2, stay and work as an employee." "I won't leave." Cole's voice trembled with rage. "Harrison Group was my father's legacy. I won't hand it over to anyone." "Then stay," I said coldly. "But remember, ordinary employees don't earn much. Your salary will be about 1/10 of what you make now. And considering your reputation, the company will keep a very close eye on you." Cole's body shook with fury. "Vivian Lane, you'll regret this." "Regret?" I gave a low, icy laugh. "The only thing I regret is ever meeting you." I picked up my pen and started signing documents. "Starting tomorrow, HR will contact you to arrange your new position. I suggest you think carefully about your attitude. This might be your last chance to stay." Cole glared at me for a long moment, then turned sharply and stormed out of the office. When he was gone, I sat back down, pretending to focus on the paperwork before me. But deep down, a strange heaviness pressed against my chest. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel anything. After all, I once truly loved this man. But some things once broken can never be repaired. Betrayal is betrayal. Pain is pain. Neither can be erased by an apology. By the fourth day, Harrison Group held an emergency shareholders meeting. The conference room was packed. Large and small investors alike filled every seat, their expressions tense. The company's crisis was no longer a secret, and everyone feared their investments were about to vanish into thin air. As the largest shareholder, I sat at the head of the table. Cole sat directly across from me, his expression dark and unreadable. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my tones steady, "thank you for taking the time to attend today's meeting. We're here to discuss the future direction of Harrison Group." "Miss Lane," an older shareholder interrupted, his voice sharp. "Everyone here knows you're the heiress of Lane Corporation. I have a question. What is your real intention behind acquiring Harrison Group?" the elderly shareholder asked. His question was blunt and critical. I knew that if my answer wasn't convincing enough, they could easily unite against me. "I acquired Harrison Group for 3 reasons, I said, rising from my seat and walking toward the projector screen. "First, because Harrison Group is a company with potential and a certain level of competitiveness in the market. Second, because the company is currently facing difficulties and in need of external funding, and Lane Corporation has the financial capacity to provide that. And third, by integrating our resources, we can complement each other's strengths and create greater value together." I clicked the remote in my hand. A detailed analysis chart appeared on the screen. "This," I continued, "is the restructuring plan prepared by my team. According to our projections, within the next 3 years, Harrison Group's revenue could grow by 150%. The room grew silent as the shareholders leaned forward, studying the chart intently. The numbers were clear, the analysis thorough and professional. It was persuasive. "Of course," I added, "to achieve this goal, we need a full-scale reform, optimizing the management system, restructuring the staff, and reshaping the corporate culture." "How exactly do you plan to restructure?" another shareholder asked. "First," I said, "we'll start by changing the executive board." I glanced briefly at Cole. Given recent events, the current CEO, Mr. Cole Harrison, is no longer suitable to continue in this role. I propose appointing a team of professional managers from Lane Corporation to oversee Harrison Group's operations. A murmur swept through the room. Everyone was aware of what had happened recently. They knew Cole's reputation had taken a serious hit. and in the world of business, image mattered. Replacing him seemed like a reasonable decision. Everyone, please. Cole suddenly stood up, his voice sharp. This is clearly personal revenge. Vivian bought into Harrison Group not to help it grow, but to destroy me. Don't let her fool you. I looked at him calmly. Mr. Harrison, please stick to facts and avoid personal attacks. Facts? He laughed bitterly. Fine, I'll tell them the facts. Vivian and I were in love. We were supposed to get married, but because of some personal issues, we broke up. Now she's using her family's power to retaliate against me. That's the truth. All the shareholders turned their attention to me, waiting for my response. I remained composed. Mr. Harrison is right about one thing. We were in a relationship, but the reason we broke up wasn't some vague personal issue. It was because he cheated on me and betrayed my trust. That's not gossip. It was reported widely by the media. I'm sure many of you have already seen it. I pressed the remote again, and a series of headlines appeared on the screen. Harris forced to be bridesmaid at her own wedding. CEO caught cheating with his secretary. Lane Corporation's daughter cancels wedding, exposes betrayal on the spot. The shareholders exchanged uneasy looks. They didn't particularly care about personal scandals, but they understood one thing very well. Such public disgrace damaged corporate credibility. Mr. Harrison, I said steadily, turning to him. Let me ask you one question. Do you believe someone with such a chaotic personal life and a ruined reputation is still fit to lead a corporation? I can change, Cole said quickly. My personal life has nothing to do with my ability to manage the company. You're right, I nodded slightly. They are two different things. But in the modern business world, the image of a CEO is the image of the company. A scandal-plagued executive drags down brand value, erodes customer trust, and makes business partners hesitate. I looked around the room, making sure to meet the eyes of every shareholder. Wouldn't you agree? One by one, they nodded. They were all seasoned business people. They didn't need further explanation. Furthermore, I continued, my tone steady but firm. I didn't acquire Harrison Group to get revenge on you, Mr. Harrison, I said steadily. I did it to save this company. If I truly wanted revenge, there are far simpler ways to do it, like cutting off all cooperation and letting Harrison Group go bankrupt overnight. But I didn't. Because this company still has other shareholders and thousands of employees who have done nothing wrong. I refused to let my personal resentment destroy the livelihoods of so many innocent people. Every word I said was calm, clear, and irrefutable. The room went quiet. The shareholders exchanged glances, their skepticism fading. They understood. If I had only wanted revenge, I could have crushed the company in one decisive move. The fact that I chose to acquire and restructure it instead proved that my goal was genuine: to save the corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, I continued, walking back to my seat. We're standing at a crossroads. There are only two options before us. 1. Accept Lane Corporation's restructuring plan, giving Harrison Group a real chance to recover. 2. Do nothing, and watch this company collapse step by step into bankruptcy. I believe everyone here is a rational investor. You know which choice is best. The shareholders began whispering among themselves, discussing the feasibility of my plan and Lane Corporation's financial strength. But now no one questioned my motives anymore. My reasoning was sound, my evidence solid. Meanwhile, Cole had nothing to offer but accusations of personal vendetta, without a shred of proof. 30 minutes later, the shareholders began voting. The result was exactly as I expected. 85% voted in favor of the restructuring plan proposed by Lane Corporation. Only 15% voted against, and of course, one of them was Cole Harrison. In that case, I said, standing up, my voice firm and composed, I officially announce that, effective today, Harrison Group will enter a full-scale restructuring phase. Lane Corporation will appoint a professional management team to take over day-to-day operations. The current CEO, Mr. Cole Harrison, will be reassigned as a regular employee. If there are no further objections, today's meeting is adjourned. One by one, the shareholders rose from their seats. Many came forward to shake my hand, expressing their support and confidence before leaving the room. When the last of them had gone, only Cole and I remained. He sat slumped in his chair, his hands clutching his head, the image of defeat itself. Finally, he looked up at me, his voice low and hoarse. Vivian, you've won. You've completely destroyed me. I calmly gathered the papers on the table. No, Cole. You destroyed yourself. If you hadn't cheated, if you hadn't betrayed me, none of this would have happened. Everything that's happened was a result of your own choices. He gave a hollow laugh. You're right. I brought this on myself, but I still don't understand. How can you be so heartless? I paused, then met his gaze. Heartless, I repeated quietly. Tell me, Cole, when you forced me to be the bridesmaid at my own wedding, did you think that was heartless? When you brought Lana into our home to sleep with her, did you think that was heartless? When you lied to me for an entire year, did you ever once stop to think that you were being heartless? He had no reply. His silence was answer enough. You and your mistress had no problem being cruel to me, I said softly. So why shouldn't I return the favor? The world is fair, Cole. You get back exactly what you give. I picked up my folder and walked toward the door. Enjoy what's left of your time here. Vivian? He called after me, his voice cracking. I really do regret it. I froze for half a second but didn't turn around. Regret always comes too late. Then I walked out, leaving him behind echo of his own downfall. Over the next month, Harrison Group underwent a complete transformation. The management team sent by Lane Corporation quickly took over each department, implementing sweeping reforms. Competent and ethical employees were retained and even given better opportunities for advancement, while those who were lazy, divisive, or only good at playing politics were swiftly dismissed. As for Cole Harrison, under my arrangement, he was reassigned to the sales department as an ordinary salesman. His monthly salary dropped from 500,000 yuan to just 5,000. His old office was remodeled into a meeting room, his company car was revoked, and even his private parking spot was erased from the lot. From the top of the corporate world, he had fallen straight to the bottom. The shock was almost enough to break him. But he didn't leave, perhaps out of pride, or maybe because he had nowhere else to go. Lana's situation was even more miserable. Since the night I recorded her confession, she had been under house arrest, forbidden to leave. I had released everything, their chat logs, photos, and videos to the public. Overnight, the entire city knew her as a shameless homewrecker. No company would hire her. No landlord would rent to her, and even rideshare drivers refused to pick her up. She became an outcast, utterly abandoned by society. Rumor had it that she once attempted suicide, but her family found her in time and saved her. Now, she lived hidden away, surviving only on her relatives' support. Meanwhile, I was fully consumed by work. Since taking over Lane Corporation, my schedule had become relentless, endless meetings, documents piling up, and clients waiting to be met. But strangely, I enjoyed it. Compared to the idle, carefree life I used to live as a wealthy heiress, I now felt alive, useful, capable, and strong. With the integration of Harrison Group's resources, Lane Corporation's strength had increased dramatically. We won several highly competitive projects and expanded into new markets. The shareholders' confidence in me grew day by day. Yet there was one thing that unsettled me. Lately, I'd had the strange feeling that someone was watching me. On my way to and from work, I often sensed someone following me. But whenever I turned around, no one was there. I told myself it was just paranoia and brushed it off. Until that night. I had worked late at the office, not leaving until after 10. The parking garage was nearly empty, dimly lit by a few flickering lights. I walked toward my car, keys in hand, and just as I was about to unlock the door, I heard footsteps behind me. I froze and turned around. A man in a baseball cap was standing a few yards away. "Who are you?" I demanded, gripping my car key tightly. He didn't answer, just started walking toward me, slow and deliberate. A chill ran down my spine. I spun around, ready to run, but before I could take a step, he lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. "Help!" I screamed, but the empty garage swallowed my voice. There was no one else around. He tried to drag me toward a dark corner. I fought wildly, slashing at his arm with my car key. He howled in pain and let go for a moment. I bolted for the elevator, frantically pressing the button, but it was still going up, too slow. He was right behind me now, clutching his bleeding arm, eyes burning with hatred. "Vivian Lane," he snarled. "You ruined my life. Now I'll ruin yours." My stomach dropped. I recognized that voice immediately. "Cole Harrison," I gasped, backing against the wall. "Are you insane?" "Yes," he shouted, ripping off his cap. His face was pale and hollow, his hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. You drove me insane. He looked like a man completely unhinged. Do you have any idea what my life has been like this past month? He said through gritted teeth, stepping closer with every word. Every single day, Cole hissed, his voice cracking with rage. People point at me, mock me, curse me. I went from being admired to being the city's biggest joke, and it's all thanks to you. That's because of your own choices, I said, forcing myself to stay calm and rational. If you hadn't cheated, none of this would have happened. So what if I cheated? Cole let out a twisted laugh, his face contorted with bitterness. You ruined my entire life over something that small? Something small? I stared at him in disbelief. You think cheating is a small matter? Isn't it? He shot back, his tone almost casual. Men having a few women on the side, it's nothing unusual. Look at the rich men out there. They all have mistresses, second wives, even third ones. I only had Lana. Why did you have to make such a big deal out of it? I was stunned. For the first time I saw the real Cole Harrison, the man behind the polished smile. He had never thought infidelity was wrong. In his mind, it was a man's privilege, something so natural it didn't even need justification. His only mistake, as far as he was concerned, was getting caught. Cole Harrison, you disgust me, I spat, unable to hide the revulsion in my voice. I'm just grateful I never married someone like you. Disgusting? His expression twisted even more. Then let me make you feel even more disgusted tonight. Before I could react, he lunged toward me, trying to grab me again. I dodged to the side and sprinted toward the emergency stairwell. But my high heels slowed me down. I hadn't gone far before he caught up. Vivian, you can't run from me. Cole snarled, yanking my hair so hard it felt like my scalp would tear apart. You ruined my life, now I'll ruin yours. I'll make sure everyone knows that the perfect heiress of the Lane family isn't so perfect after all. Pain seared through my head as I struggled desperately. Let go, Cole. You're only making things worse. Worse? He laughed manically. How could it possibly get worse? I've already lost everything. What else is there to be afraid of? At that moment, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Miss Lane? It was the building's security team. They must have heard my screams. Cole froze, panic flashing in his eyes, then shoved me away. This isn't over, Vivian, he shouted, glaring at me before bolting down the stairwell. The guards rushed to my side. Miss Lane, are you all right? I'm fine, I said, though my voice trembled as I smoothed my tangled hair. Go after him. Don't let him get away. They immediately split up to chase him, but by the time they reached the exits, Cole had vanished into the night. I sank to the floor, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. If the guards hadn't arrived when they did, I didn't even want to imagine what could have happened. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. Hello, 911. I need to report an assault. The next morning, the police found Cole Harrison hiding at a rented apartment. He didn't resist arrest, if anything, he looked strangely relieved. During interrogation, he confessed to what happened but refused to admit guilt. I didn't commit a crime, he told the officers calmly. I just wanted to talk to Vivian. You called grabbing her by the hair and dragging her around talking? One officer shot back. She wouldn't listen, so I had to be firm, Cole said coldly. Besides, I didn't actually hurt her. Mr. Harrison, the officer said sharply, your actions constitute assault and criminal intimidation. You will be held legally accountable. Law? Cole sneered, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Let's see what the Lane family can really do to me. He still hadn't grasped reality, still clinging to the illusion that he was the powerful CEO he used to be. But now, he was nothing more than a disgraced criminal. I went to the station with my attorney to give my statement. I described every detail of what had happened that night and handed over the parking garage's surveillance footage as evidence. Miss Lane, the investigating officer said as he flipped through the documents, based on the evidence we have, we can charge Cole Harrison with assault and intentional injury. He paused briefly before continuing. However, since your injuries weren't severe, it's likely he'll only face a minor sentence. I understand, I said with a nod, but I'd like to add another charge. The officer looked up. What charge? Extortion and threats, I replied, taking out my phone and playing a recording. Cole's voice filled the room, cold, menacing, and unmistakably his. If you don't do what I want, I'll make sure your life and reputation are destroyed. The officer's expression hardened. This clearly constitutes extortion, he said seriously. If that charge is upheld, he could be facing 3 to 5 years in prison. Then proceed accordingly, I said quietly. When I left the station, a weight seemed to lift off my chest. Cole hadn't been officially sentenced yet, but at least he was being held in custody. For the time being, he wouldn't have another chance to come near me. When I returned to the company, my secretary came rushing into my office, her face pale. Miss Lane, there's some news. Lana, she took her own life last night. I froze. What did you just say? She drank poison at home, the secretary said softly. By the time her family found her, it was too late. They said she left a note, and she mentioned you in it. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling slightly, my emotions tangled together in a way I couldn't describe. I had despised Lana, yes, but hearing she was dead still left me shaken. What did she say? I asked after a long pause. She apologized to you, my secretary replied carefully. She said she was sorry for everything and hoped you could forgive her. She wrote that the past month had been worse than death, every day filled with regret. I sat silently for a long time. A question gnawed at me. Was I responsible for Lana's death? If I hadn't made her disgrace public, if I hadn't released the photos and recordings that turned her into a target for the entire city's hatred, would she still be alive? But then I forced myself to face the truth. Her death had been her choice. I hadn't killed her. I'd only made her face the consequences of her own actions. If she'd truly regretted what she did, she could have left the city, started over somewhere new. Instead, she chose to run away from it all the coward's way, through death. Miss Lane, are you all right? My secretary asked gently, worry in her eyes. I'm fine, I said, taking a deep breath. Lana's matter ends here. There's no need to dwell on it any further. There's one more thing, my secretary added hesitantly. Mrs. Harrison, Cole's mother, wants to see you. I hesitated for a moment before saying, let her in. A few minutes later, Mrs. Harrison was escorted into my office. She looked even more frail than before, her eyes red and swollen, her cheeks sunken. Vivian, her voice broke the moment she spoke. Please, I beg you, let Cole go. Mrs. Harrison, I said evenly, I already have, but he refuses to let go of himself. What happened last night was his doing, not mine. I know, she sobbed, but he's already fallen this far, isn't that enough? Haven't you had your revenge? Revenge? I repeated sharply. Do you think seeing him ruined and behind bars makes me happy? Do you think I wanted to destroy him? She blinked, stunned into silence. I never wanted to ruin Cole, I said firmly. All I wanted was for him to face the consequences of his own actions. If he had just accepted reality, worked quietly as a regular employee, I wouldn't have done anything more. But he couldn't stand it. He wanted revenge. That's why what happened last night happened. So tell me, does that sound like my fault to you? Mrs. Harrison didn't answer. She just wept harder. I understand how a mother feels, I said softly, my tone gentler now, but there are things in life that can't be undone. Once you make a choice, you have to face the consequences. That's the most basic rule of being human. If someone does wrong. Some people, I said quietly, think that once they've fallen far enough, they can use that as an excuse to escape responsibility. But if that were allowed, where would justice be? Mrs. Harrison lifted her tear-streaked face to look at me. Vivian, you've changed. Yes, I replied without hesitation. I've changed. I don't deny it. After being betrayed and hurt like that, who wouldn't change? I used to be naive, too kind, too trusting. That's why people thought they could deceive me and hurt me. But now I've learned how to protect myself. I've learned to fight back. Tell me, Mrs. Harrison, what's wrong with that? She sat in silence for a long while before speaking again. Vivian, I'm begging you, just this once. For the sake of the long relationship between our two families, please give Cole another chance. What kind of chance? I asked evenly. Let him leave this city, she pleaded. Let him start over somewhere else. I promise he'll never show up in front of you again. I thought about it for a moment, then replied, that will depend on the court's decision. If the judge grants him probation or allows him to serve his sentence outside of prison, I won't object. But I have one condition. What condition? She asked quickly. He must issue a public apology, I said firmly. He has to admit his mistakes and promise never to bother me again. Mrs. Harrison nodded eagerly. I'll make sure he does that. Then that's settled. I stood up. Go talk to him, Mrs. Harrison. Make him understand the reality of his situation. If he keeps going down this path, no one wins. After she left, I sat back down at my desk. The truth was, I didn't want things to go this far either. As much as I despised Cole Harrison, I never wished for his death. If he could truly show remorse, I'd be willing to give him a chance to start over. Everyone makes mistakes. It's human. What matters is whether they're willing to take responsibility and change, not deny their guilt and lash out at others. A week later, the court convened for Cole Harrison's trial. On his lawyer's advice, he pled guilty. At the hearing, he stood up, apologized publicly, and admitted his wrongdoing. He expressed his willingness to take full responsibility before the law. Taking into account that it was his first offense and that he showed genuine remorse, the court sentenced him to 3 years in prison, with a 5-year suspended sentence. That meant he wouldn't go to jail, but he'd remain under community supervision and be forbidden to leave the city. After the trial, Cole walked up to me. "Vivian, thank you," he said quietly. "I know that if it weren't for your leniency, I'd probably be behind bars right now." "You don't need to thank me," I replied, meeting his eyes. "That was the court's judgment, not a favor from me." "I understand," he said, nodding, "but I still want to say it, and I want to apologize to you." "For what?" I asked calmly. "For everything," he said sincerely. "For the lies, the cheating, the betrayal, the revenge, all of it. I realize now how deeply I hurt someone who truly loved me. I'm sorry, Vivian, I really am." I stared at him, a storm of emotions churning inside me. His apology came far too late. If he had been this honest a month ago, maybe things wouldn't have gone this far. "Cole Harrison," I said softly, "I accept your apology, but I will not forgive you. Some wounds can't be undone. Some trust once broken can never be rebuilt." He nodded slowly. "I understand." "Then I wish you luck," I said, turning to leave. "I hope you truly start over this time." 1 month later, the truth finally came to light. Jacob Lang really was an investor returning from the UK, but his real purpose wasn't business. It was revenge. He was Lana's cousin. After Lana's suicide, her family. She believed I was the one who drove her to her death, I said quietly after hearing the full story. And Jacob Lang, the most capable member of her family, was sent back to the country to avenge her. His plan was simple: use his position as an investor to get close to me through a business partnership, then slowly sabotage Lane Corporation from within. But he hadn't expected me to demand full control over the merger. That move disrupted his entire plan. Now, he was searching for other ways to bring us down. When I learned the truth, I actually felt a strange sense of relief. At least Jacob wasn't some mysterious force lurking in the shadows anymore. He was an enemy with clear motives, and enemies with faces are always easier to deal with than unseen threats. Immediately, I tightened the company's security protocols and instructed every department to stay alert. At the same time, I launched a counterattack, quietly investigating every one of Jacob's operations in the country. If he wanted a war, I was ready to fight him to the very end. For 6 months, everything seemed calm. Then the storm came again. Perhaps some people are simply destined to become one another's rivals. Jacob's revenge plan turned out to be far more elaborate than I'd imagined. In the following months, Lane Corporation began facing a series of inexplicable problems. Several major clients suddenly terminated their contracts, all citing strategic adjustments. Some of our key suppliers started delaying deliveries, disrupting production schedules. Even the banks began to review our existing loans. Each issue alone might have seemed coincidental, but happening all at once, it was clearly orchestrated. I ordered an investigation. The results confirmed my suspicions. Those clients and suppliers had all recently established contact with a company called Lang Ventures. Its registered legal representative was none other than Jacob Lang himself. "He's using his capital to surround and strangle us financially," my CFO said anxiously. "If this continues, our cash flow will be in serious trouble." "His methods are cunning," I said, keeping my tone steady. "He doesn't want to strike one deadly blow. He wants to bleed us slowly, one cut at a time." "So what do we do now?" the CFO asked. "We fight back," I said, standing and walking toward the window. "If he wants to destroy Lane Corporation, then we'll destroy him first. Over the next month, I mobilized every connection the Lane family had. My father's longtime associates, business allies, old friends, and every network I'd painstakingly built over the years. I wanted Jacob Lang to understand one thing clearly. In this city, the Lanes were still the true power. It didn't take long for him to feel the pressure. His investment firm began facing a barrage of sudden, routine inspections from the Department of Commerce, the Tax Bureau, and even the Fire Safety Authority. None of them were illegal or targeted, at least not on paper. But the sheer frequency of them was enough to make any company crumble under the strain. Worse still, the investment projects Jacob had nearly secured started falling apart one after another. Investors backed out, citing a dozen different excuses, but all leading to the same outcome: no cooperation. Eventually, Jacob realized he could no longer stay on the defensive. He reached out to me himself, requesting a private meeting. We met in a quiet VIP lounge of a downtown hotel. "Miss Lane," he said with a faint, bitter smile the moment he saw me, "your tactics are impressive. I underestimated your influence here." "You flatter me, Mr. Lang," I replied coolly. "I'm merely protecting my company." "Protecting?" He let out a hollow laugh. "You call this protecting? You practically rallied the entire city against me." "And what about you?" I countered. "Didn't you use your financial power to crush Lane Corporation first? How is that any different from what I'm doing?" Jacob fell silent, his jaw tightening. "Mr. Lang, let's be honest with each other," I said, looking straight at him. "I understand that you came here to avenge Lana, but the way you chose to do it, it's wrong." "And what's the right way then?" he asked coldly. "To just come see you and talk about it?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "If you'd come to me from the start and explained your reasons, maybe we could have found another way to handle it. Instead, you chose underhanded tactics." Jacob's eyes darkened, a complex emotion flickering within them. "Miss Lane, do you really think you're blameless in all this?" "Of course not," I said without hesitation. "My mistake was being too forgiving. If I'd cut Lana off completely at the beginning, she wouldn't have had the chance to do what she did. If I'd been tougher with Cole Harrison, he might never have dared to plot revenge. My kindness became a weapon they used against me." Jacob's expression hardened. "Do you truly believe that?" "If not, then tell me," I countered. "Do you think Lana was innocent? She seduced a married man, destroyed someone else's marriage, and tried to humiliate his wife on her wedding day. For someone like that, dying was simply the consequence of her own choices, wasn't it?" My words stunned him. He hadn't expected me to speak so bluntly, so coldly. "Miss Lane," he said after a pause, his voice low, "no matter what she did, Lana was still a human life." "A human life?" I cut him off sharply. "Do you even realize how many lives she nearly ruined? If I hadn't been strong enough, if the Lane family hadn't had power, the one who'd be dead now would have been me. Have you ever thought about that?" Jacob fell silent again, because he knew I was right. If I'd been just another ordinary woman, betrayed, humiliated, cornered the way I was, I might have taken my own life too. "Mr. Lang," I continued, my tone calm but firm, "let me ask you something. If someone hurt your family the way they hurt mine, what would you do?" "I'd take revenge," he admitted without hesitation. "Exactly." I gave a faint, cold smile. "That's what I'm doing. I'm taking revenge. In essence, you and I, we're the same." "No," Jacob shook his head. "You're avenging yourself against those who wronged you, but I'm avenging someone who was innocent." "Innocent?" I stared straight into his eyes. "Do you really think I'm guilty then? I never once went after anyone first. I only defended myself. And you're trying to punish me for the death of a woman who destroyed others' lives. Doesn't that logic strike you as ridiculous?" Jacob had no reply. Because the truth was, I wasn't guilty. Lana's death had been her own choice, an escape from the consequences she brought upon herself. "Mr. Lang," I said quietly, extending my hand toward him, "let's end this here. Continuing this fight won't benefit either of us." He stared at my hand for a long moment, clearly conflicted. Finally, he reached out and shook it. "Ms. Lane, I admit defeat," he said in a low voice, "but this isn't over." "What do you mean?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Lana's parents are still waiting for word from me," he said solemnly. "If I tell them I've failed, they might take matters into their own hands." My heart sank. "And what exactly does that mean, take matters into their own hands?" "It's not a threat," Jacob said, standing up. "It's a warning. Be careful, Miss Lane. You may have more enemies than you realize. With that, he turned and left, leaving me alone in the silent room. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway. I knew this war wasn't truly over. Jacob was only the first. There would be others, people waiting in the shadows, ready to strike. But I wasn't afraid. I was no longer the naive heiress of the Lane family from 3 years ago. Now, I had the strength and the intelligence to protect myself. No matter how many enemies came my way, I would make sure they understood one thing: Vivian Lane was not someone to be underestimated. When do you think true peace begins? When you leave, or when you finally let go? Love and Lies story.